This is the Venture Capital Fast Lane. I am your host, Ryan Else, Managing Partner of Roadster Capital. In the Venture Capital Fast Lane, we will talk about all things fast in venture capital and everything that surrounds it. If it's fast, we're going to talk about it. Growth, exits, funding, cars, rockets, data, software, and much more. We are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. So buckle up. This is the Venture Capital Fast Lane. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Venture Capital Fast Lane. Today, we're going to be talking about venture studios and how they differ from accelerators, amongst other things. And my guest today will be David Wagner. He is the founder and managing partner of Wildwood VC. It is a venture studio, and they are an investor at the intersection of the outdoor and wellness economies, which I think many of you here will find very interesting and intriguing as he goes into what they do. Wildwood Ventures is backed by VF Corp and all of their classic brands. You're going to hear what they are. They're great ones. And they partner with some of the biggest outdoor and wellness brands on the planet. David started his career in consulting and private equity prior to spending 17 years at VF Corp as an EVP. He was focused on strategy, planning, and venture. And he is a graduate of Harvard Business School, or HBS, as some of you know it, and also the University of North Carolina, a Tar Heel, and also where Michael Jordan played basketball. All right, so David, welcome to the Venture Capital Fast Lane. It's great to have you today.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here. And I love the Tar Heel reference there at the beginning. I bleed Carolina blue. So anytime you can connect me to Michael Jordan, I take it as a huge compliment.
Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I've been fortunate to meet Michael Jordan two different times, and he autographed an Sports Illustrated cover issue where he was in his North Carolina blue for me
Nice.
when I was a kid in high school.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's a great university, a lot of strong alumni, and you're definitely one of them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but thanks for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, my pleasure. So David, let's get into it. You started your career in consulting and private equity before moving over to VF, where you spent 17 years. Can you kind of share with me and our audience your experiences and how they shaped your approach to strategy and ventures at VF?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career as a lowly business analyst at McKinsey and Company in Washington, D.C., building PowerPoint decks and financial models until midnight every night. It was a great start to my career, very fortunate to have had it. I would say what I learned there was setting a really high bar for excellence and, this belief that culturally in healthy organizations, everybody has to have a clear point of view on the topic at hand and be able to express it. And that's demanded even of the lowliest business analysts there at McKinsey. So that was great. I spent the next 2 years doing private equity at Bank of America, got a first real education in financial returns and risk mitigation. And that was also where I got my first taste with consumer brands, which I instantly really enjoyed. And that led me to go to VF Corporation after my 2 years in business school. And as you mentioned, I was there for a long time. I was there for 17 years. And during that period, VF kind of went through a few different iterations of its life, I would say. But I learned some really foundational things that have stuck with me to this day. How to be truly consumer-led in thinking about your business, or you could say user-led if you're in a B2B context, and focusing on the unmet need. I learned the core essentials of strategy as a true professional discipline, which not everybody thinks of it that way, but I very much view it that way. I had the chance to learn a lot of that from Roger Martin. Some of your audience may know him. He's generally viewed as one of the kind of greatest strategists literally living today, and I got to learn a lot from him. And then as I grew in my career and had people reporting to me, I just learned to really enjoy the aspects of coaching others and encouraging others and helping them to be their best in their own career. And my job as a leader is to propel them, certainly not to micromanage, but to find what they're best at and help them to bring that to life and how they lead their own bodies of work.
Wow, that's quite an interesting early start to your career, and I think a lot of people will probably latch on more or less to the experiences in strategy and culture, maybe more so than the early McKinsey part. So that's quite an opportunity for you to learn under people like that.
Yeah, it definitely was. Very, very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
Well, what was it that inspired you to leave VF Corp and start Wildwood VC? Like, how did VF Corp come to back Wildwood? How did you convince them to do that? And what's like the vision or the mission behind this venture studio?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you had told me, Ryan, 5 years ago that I'd be sitting here as a general partner in a venture capital fund, I probably wouldn't have believed it because it kind of wasn't in my vision at that time. Now I totally believe it's what I'm supposed to do. You could even say what I feel like I'm called to do. I think probably for most people, careers have unexpected turns along the way, and mine is no different. So Wildwood, which we launched a year ago, is really a reincarnation of the internal corporate ventures group that I had started on the inside of VF. And after COVID happened, it kind of tipped VF into a turnaround situation. Most of that owing to a growth stall with the Vans brand, which was VF's biggest brand and biggest driver of cash flow. And turnarounds take time to accomplish, as I think everybody realizes. And when you're doing corporate venturing work, even though it's important, it's less urgent in a turnaround situation in a big public company. And those kinds of things may not always survive the restructuring that companies go through in those times. So I basically proposed to a guy named Ben O'Dwyer and Matt Puckett, they were VF's CEO and CFO at that point, that what we were doing, kind of looking around the corner in a way that would benefit VF's brands, that was still a necessary and valuable thing for VF. But that we had an opportunity to basically stand up a company on the outside, and VF could still get the fruit from the work, but it could be done with lower cost to the company. So VF went from being a owner of a kind of innovation business unit to being the anchor limited partner in our fund. So we launched in May of 2023. And at Wildwood Ventures, our mission is to build and invest in human focused technology businesses that make lives better. And we say specifically that we play in the market for what we call healthy and active lifestyles. And we support founders that are directly and indirectly dealing with this really interesting phenomenon in our culture, which is, today we have more power in our pocket than sent man to the moon by many factors over. And we're supposedly more connected to people around the world than ever before. And we're also wealthier as a society than at any time in human history. But despite those things, we are more sedentary, we're more addicted, we're lonelier, we're tired, we're burnt out, we're living life indoors unnecessarily than at any time before. And so we support founders that are building businesses that help people to explore and move, to improve their health, to connect with their tribe. It helps them to train to win in competitive kind of athletic contexts. And then last but not least, to focus their mind and their spirit. So we address a wide set of dimensions of wellness, including connection to the outdoors, which we think is pivotal. And those are the kinds of businesses that we back. We play at the earliest stages of venture creation, what your listeners would know as pre-seed and seed. And then the last thing that I'll mention here is that we use a venture studio-led business model, which means that we get very hands-on with our entrepreneurs, co-building with them at the earliest stages of venture creation to find product market fit.
Well, I so that's quite interesting. So born out of the pandemic, without a doubt,
Yep,
as part of a turnaround story with a bit of a focus on loss of cash flow from the Vans business unit.
that's right.
Wow,
That's
how
right.
about that? So I understand the consumer side and the turnaround piece of it. From my prior experience, you were touching on careers and career changes and trajectory. I led the turnaround for Oregon Scientific, which was a consumer goods manufacturer of outdoor products, health and wellness products, smart home IoT connected devices, and the like. And it was a wild, if you would say, journey, turning that business around and shedding some of the fat and the business units that were not profitable, were not helping our business grow. We were not making investments in the way that you did. The company is based out of Hong Kong, and we ended up selling to a much larger global conglomerate in Nanjing, China. But yeah, it was very fun and interesting working on all types of wellness and health and sport related product lines in that company, and launching those products and helping to lead companies in the way forward. I wish we were able to do a bit of what you and your team are doing over there at Wildwood, which is work closer with entrepreneurs and founders, because they are the ones who have the grit to know how to get out and make it happen. And I think part of getting out, as it relates to the VF brand, is getting outside and getting outdoors, and not being afraid of getting dirty or wet, and just having fun, enjoying life, and being your best self in an either an outwardly way or even an introverted way, but letting the elements of the world around you come upon you and improve people's lives.
Yeah, 100%. We our tagline is actually life to the full.
Oh, it
So
is. Huh.
we believe that for people to have kind of lives of maximum enjoyment and intrinsic meaning, you need to do those things. You need to be out and about. You need to be active. You need to be engaging in real life with people that you share things in common with. And COVID, I think, showed us the importance of those things, and it kind of led people to realize, wait a second, these things really are important. So there's a lot of renewed awareness that these things are important in our society, and that's something that we believe we can contribute to by backing the entrepreneurs that are creating new pathways to those things for people.
Is there one or two things that you do as an individual to live that ethos?
That's a great example. Ironically, I'm probably not the best example of that. We so between starting a new venture firm and we have 4 kids that are ages 15 down to 7. That's what takes up a lot of my time. But at the same time, I live in Denver, Colorado, which is we think it's the best place that Wildwood could be headquartered because of the lifestyle that Colorado affords. So we love to get out and hike on the weekends. Our house is actually on a 8,000 acre protected backcountry wilderness area, and there's tons of trails back there. And just being close to nature is really important to me and to our family. But Colorado is a wonderful place to be able to experience all kinds of things like that.
It sure is. I lived in Colorado as a kid. We lived in Fort Collins and Littleton in Denver. Always a really great place. I got my snow feet on skiing as a young kid. First time on the mountain up at was it Breckenridge? I think it was
Hmm.
Breck.
Nice.
So always good times and good memories from the Colorado days. I'm always a Bronco fan. A big fan of John Elway.
Well,
going
those were
going
the
back
better
some a
years.
bit.
Those were the
Those were
better
better
years.
years.
It's been
But
tough.
yeah, you're right. Colorado's a great place. It's beautiful. It's sunny all of the time. What's the number of days it's sunny?
Yeah, the
325
Chamber of
days.
Commerce number is 300. I'm not sure if that's
It's
technically
300.
true or
Yes. So
not, but
okay,
people
three
run with it. It
325
works.
is a little bit a lot better than Oregon. If you want outdoors adventure, we have it here in Oregon too, but it doesn't compare from my
Yeah.
perspective to what you can get living in Colorado.
No, Oregon's great as well, for sure.
It is, but so if Wildwood focuses on the intersection of outdoor and wellness economies, why do you really believe these particular sectors are ripe for innovation and investment like right now? Do you think it's part of that? It's part of this whole coming out of COVID, getting out and being more involved that way?
Yeah, certainly COVID, I think, highlights the opportunities there. But I would say even before you think about COVID, I mean, these are just great dynamic parts of the US economy. We say that our addressable market of opportunity is $1 trillion. That's how much GDP these spaces represent, they grow, probably 3 times faster than the underlying economic growth rate of, businesses of all life stage. And there's just tons of consumer and business interest in these spaces, which is great. And they also present other opportunities for disruption and innovation. I mean, both outdoor and wellness, as historically defined anyway, have been pretty fragmented, rather low technology markets that now bring lots of opportunities for the integration of digital and data into the way that people experience them. And again, before COVID, I mean, there's a long-term health and wellness megatrend that we don't think is going away. I mean, I'm staking my career on that fact, so I very much believe it. But COVID boosted all of it. And then, additionally, outdoor and wellness, there's lots of opportunities for upside from broader participation by an increasingly multicultural, heterogeneous market of users. I think that's an important opportunity. But then there's also, last thing I'll say, there's unique factors for both outdoor and wellness. I mean, on the outdoor side, sustainability is a really important driver of growth and disruption. You also have climate change that's happening out there. It leads to greater weather volatility, which changes the way that people experience the outdoors. So there's opportunities there. And then on the wellness side, we talk a lot about just kind of a growing lack of belief in institutional medicine and its ability to help people in a cost-effective way. And as technology evolves, there's a growing ability to take well-being into your own hands, getting unique insights about your body and turning that into behavioral change with the way that you manage your life. So there's just lots of opportunities for disruption in good ways in a really exciting part of the market that's just fun to work in. You alluded to that a minute ago. We just, the kinds of businesses that we get to work with, they're just fun. And the founders that we work with are awesome. So, those are some of the things that attract us to that thesis as Wildwood.
Yeah, there's really nothing quite like working with a team that is fun and outwardly exuberant with their emotional connection to the product that they're building and how they're getting it to market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have good memory of the founder of GoPro, just getting out there and just like basically like a 2-year-old just saying "wee" all the time and just really getting out there and building building a really strong community around everything that they did. And you certainly have the opportunity in the seat that you're in to work with founders who are able to connect and build community around the brands they're doing, as well as you spoke to earlier, the strategy, connections, network, and access to distribution that would help them be successful in getting to market sooner rather than later.
Yep, that's right.
Well, so let's talk about some of those classic brands that are part of VF Corp in one way or another connected to Wildwood. So you've got North Face, Vans, and JanSport that come to mind. There are others. You want to let us know a couple of them?
Yeah, so VF owns 12 outdoor and active brands. Their biggest brands are the North Face and Vans, but they also own Timberland. They own Dickies, which is more of kind of a work lifestyle brand. And they own Supreme, which is kind of the OG streetwear brand. And then they have a lot of smaller but really cool, very high authenticity outdoor brands that you didn't mention. Some of your listeners may know Smart Wool or Icebreaker, which are both merino kind of technical performance apparel brands. They own Ultra, which is if you're a runner, you love running on trails, like check out Ultra. They make some great products that your feet are really comfortable in. So they just have this dynamic portfolio that creates opportunities for us as an investor that's leaning into spaces that are of interest to VF.
So when looking at the current stable of brands that exist under that umbrella, how does that influence the type of companies that you're looking to? Are you looking for companies that will add value in a direct brand extension way to those existing companies, or something and companies that are completely different that might drive an entirely new category?
It's a great question. So, the first thing I'll say, we're very fortunate to have a great relationship with VF, and we're certainly investing against a thesis that is important to them. Our thesis today is very similar to what we were doing on the inside of VF. Outdoor is their most successful business unit, and just health and wellness is like a blatantly obvious trend that many of their brands can lean into for growth in different ways. But that said, it's important to share that we are not trying to find the next North Face or the next Vans, meaning the next apparel or footwear brand. VF already has those. Rather, what we're doing is we're looking for businesses that can be adjacencies on the consumer side and enablers on the business to business side that could help VF either at a brand or a portfolio level. And not all of Wildwood's investments will be right in the bullseye for VF, but most will have a clear logical connection to opportunity that VF could take advantage of either in the short term or in the long term. But we certainly look for things that we believe can be meaningful and important to VF, and some of those things may be immediate and obvious to them today, and others may be things that they could grow into or evolve into or test and learn their way into over time.
Yeah, I think I can see how it could even go beyond a consumer good, in something that could be of value to that broader ecosystem. Let's say critical machines, perhaps, that might improve the manufacturing processes, or even systems along those lines. I don't see how you would immediately pass on something like that if you kind of think it fits into that thesis.
Yeah, that's right. There's lots of enabling capabilities, and we are focused on kind of digitally led or software led businesses. So something like maybe a fulfillment machine, robotics or something, probably would be out of scope for us because we just would say we don't have the expertise to evaluate that and add value to it in our studio. But there's so many things that can be at the intersection of where we can add value as an investor and where VF can get benefit either on the back end or on the front end of their work in the market.
Okay, yeah. So how does the venture studio model at Wildwood differ from accelerators, some that have recently crashed and burned, like Techstars, or a bigger one like Plug and Play in the Valley? Like, what are the like? You've touched on some of the unique advantages, but what are like three or four true unique differentiators from your perspective?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. It's something that we explain a lot in our interactions in the market because terms can mean different things to different people. So what I'll do is I'll explain our model and then I'll compare it to accelerators. You mentioned a couple of the very famous ones like Techstars. So we define our model as being a venture studio led investor. And what that means is that all or nearly all of our funds investments will begin as companies in our studio when we have founders that have the role of entrepreneur in residence with us. When people hear the term venture studio, they often think of what we at Wildwood refer to as a closed studio, or some people refer to it as a founding studio. And in those cases, the studio comes up with the ideas, they launch MVPs, put them out in the market, see what sticks. And then for those that have traction, they'll bring in an operator, but the studio maintains the clear majority control of the business. This is not our model. As an open studio, we have a very strong philosophical preference to begin with the founder. And that can be a founder who literally comes to us with an idea, or maybe they already have a product in the market, but we invite them in as an EIR to actively build the business with them. And that's typically for 12 months of daily roll up our sleeves work together with them. And so in that case, we essentially serve as a fractional co-founder for this period of time. And sometimes it can be for longer. And this is during the earliest period of business incubation to find what we call product market fit. So everything that we do as a studio-led investor is bespoke, and we will almost inevitably pivot, sometimes multiple times during that EIR term. And in exchange for that work, we will take a minority position of common that still leaves the founder in control of his or her business, and we'll also write checks to the company, put them into the balance sheet, and that gives us a form of preferred ownership as well. So that's what we do. Now, in contrast, there are other kinds of early stage investors called accelerators. And these can be very helpful to founders as well. They're just different. So accelerators tend to be cohort based. They're not bespoke. And sometimes your cohort might have 20 or 30 or maybe even 40 other startups that are with you at the same time. And the cohort will typically run for maybe 10 or 12 weeks. It'll have a very structured agenda, kind of a tried and true playbook that the accelerator kind of works through, and the startups that are participants are learning from that and trying to apply that to their business at that particular moment. And then accelerators will take a pretty standard ownership stake. Usually it's like mid to high single digit ownership of common, but just with a fraction of the support that we would provide on a much longer term basis, going a lot deeper with the founders. So accelerators can be a great model. We certainly are not critical of them at all, but what we do is very different. And for some founders, an accelerator is great. And for other founders, they really benefit from the extra support that we provide as a venture studio.
All right. Yeah. So that I like how you all put them on balance sheet and write checks, as opposed to some of these more, I guess, typical accelerator models. I'm not a particularly large fan of the accelerator. I've seen a lot of people go into accelerators with high expectations and come out somewhat empty-handed. And so I say if you can avoid it and look for something where there's a stronger connection and commitment to your company out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we love is because we are sitting really on the same side of the table as our founders, holding the same kind of security that they hold. We're in it with them for the long haul. It just allows us to build a level of trust with them and depth of understanding of their business, which we believe helps us to add more value to them as investors.
So, can you share with us some success stories or case studies of companies that Wildwood VC has partnered with? Like maybe what made these stand out to you?
Yeah, sure. So, just as a reminder to your audience, we're still new, right? So we launched a year
That's
ago.
true. That's true.
So the unicorn success story is not there for us yet. So I'll certainly caveat my answer with that. But right now we have 6 portfolio companies. There's 4 business to consumer and 2 business to business, but they're all early stage. We're excited about all of them. Each of them is different. Most of them are still at that pre-seed stage. We have a couple that are about to kind of go to market for their seed rounds in the back half of this year. So that'll be a really exciting time for each of them. But I'll give you one example. This is the first company that we invested in when we were still on the inside of VF, and we brought that investment to Wildwood as a part of VF's investment in Wildwood. It's a company called Out and Back. Out and Back is in the re-commerce space. They are a managed re-commerce marketplace that is focused on a different set of product categories than most re-commerce players. Most re-commerce players have focused on luxury and fashion. In contrast, Out and Back is focused on what they call lifestyle durables. So I want you to think about your garage, maybe think about your basement. You've got a lot of really cool stuff in there that you probably paid a lot of money for at some point in time, and you don't use it anymore. This could be outdoor gear, which is actually where Out and Back started. It could be other things like maybe golf clubs or power tools, but there's all kinds of things with high residual value and low fashion risk. That is the part of the market that they are focused on. So they connect buyers and sellers interested in those product categories, and they're off to a great start. They grew at a very fast rate last year. They're going to repeat that this year, and they're very much a seed stage company that's planning to go to market for their next round in the back half of this year. So we're just really proud of what they've been able to do, and things that make them kind of different or unique. And these are things that we look for in all of our investments. Their founder is terrific. His name is Baruch, and he's a great example of what we call high founder problem to solve fit. He really is an expert in all things outdoor gear, which again is where this company started. It's in a tailwind market. You obviously, as an investor, you want to invest in markets that are naturally growing by themselves versus having to scratch and claw for market share. And he's bringing a kind of a counter cultural business model in the re-commerce space. Out and Back will actually acquire inventory, which for some VCs, they're like, we don't want to do that because that's cash inefficient. But it's deeply tied to his competitive advantage, which is understanding the market so well and knowing what to buy, what not to buy, when to buy it, when to sell it. And so for these reasons, he can make, and Out and Back can make a lot more money by actually acquiring the inventory versus just taking a transactional fee in an asset light capacity, which is what most re-commerce players do. So we love that that company is taking a counter view to the business model, and the proof is in the pudding in terms of the experience that they're giving both to buyers and to sellers. Really terrific customer engagement scores, which is ultimately what's contributing to this growth. So that's one example of the kind of business that we invest in, and again, we think there's a lot more behind it like that, but that's the one that's farthest along for us, and it's just a great example that we can point to for our earlier founders that are coming to market, after that one.
It also sounds like a great example that addresses that key concern that we've been speaking about within the industry of sustainability for outdoor and wellness, because that re-commerce is directly tied to sustainability in a multitude of ways. There's a lot of data that you could put behind that, both for your consumer base as well as for your investor base, to talk about
Absolutely.
how
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
interested in it.
So I mean, from a ESG standpoint, Wildwood does have some S in our portfolio. Out and Back as an example. We've invested in a B2B SaaS business that is building data-based tools for land managers, which very much has a sustainability element. But I would say the kind of the social, sorry, that was the E. What I was just referring to was the environmental, but the social, the S in ESG, is where Wildwood really leans in, because every business that we invest in, it's helping people directly or indirectly to lead more fulfilling lives. And that, I think, is where we can leave the greatest footprint through the investments that we make.
So in saying that, what are the trends that you foresee in the outdoor and wellness industries, maybe over the next 5 to 10 years? And you're
Yeah,
still in the early innings, but how are you positioning yourself to capitalize those trends?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. One that we are very excited about, and I think everybody listening to this would acknowledge is an issue, is businesses that address the problems of loneliness and social isolation. And we certainly all lived through that in different ways during COVID. The smartphone and social media is contributing to that in some very unhealthy ways, especially with our youth. You're sitting right next to somebody, but you're communicating with them through your phone. It just kind of blows your mind that that's where we are right now. So we see lots of startup pitches that address this problem to solve. One thing that we're really excited about finding the right investment for is with a new approach to social media. The current social media business models that we all use, they're highly transactional. And the user is the product, right? The user is the product that's being sold through ad-based models. And sometimes these firms, and you've heard the admitted statements from former engineers and executives in these large social media firms, they're using, you can almost say, predatory tactics that prey on how the brain works to drive dopamine hits and to keep you addicted to that feed. But we think social media can be more. We think it can be better, and we think it can bring people back to some of the original positive visions that I think the founders of these companies had for social media, models that can drive more in real life interactions on a local basis, models that can drive more valuable content, meaningful, rich content, but in more digestible ways. So think, as an example, like bite-sized doses of great books or podcasts. We think all those things are possible, and that's a great example of how technology can be used for good and for better living. I'll give you another example, something that we're excited about, but just kind of from a different perspective, and that is businesses that serve what we call the silver economy in the outdoor and wellness space. People are living longer. People desire to stay active longer, and modern science allows people to do that. But most businesses, most venture investors are not focused here. I think the natural bias, and I saw this in the apparel and footwear industry for so long, the natural bias is to focus younger. But these older users, they have a lot more money, more disposable income, and they're often more loyal to the things that they buy. So there are opportunities out there to enable people as they age to still get out and be active and to explore the world around them. We have a portfolio company, Chimani, that's doing just that. Or opportunities to help people monitor their health better at home with fewer kind of professional medical check-ins or interventions. Those are just examples of the things that are going to be possible, increasingly so with digital data connectivity, and those can bring real improvements to people's everyday living. And those are just a couple of the things that we're excited about as Wildwood.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I like hearing about these different categories that you're looking at and how they really are quite differentiated from everything that is within the VF umbrella. So, what advice would you be giving to these aspiring entrepreneurs right now? Like how are you telling them, especially the younger ones that aren't really that gray hair guy, but maybe are approaching and trying to sell to the gray hair market? How do you tell them how to make an impact and communicate effectively with that demographic if they don't know it inside and out? How do they, approach outdoor and wellness spaces for, a wide range of customers in demographic and age?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. My answers here are probably not specific to outdoor and wellness, but hopefully useful advice for
Well, it
anybody that's
doesn't have to be. Yeah.
wanting to start a business. But one, and we look for this with deep focus, is bring a strong passion for your problem to solve. Like, we look for founders where it's personal to them for whatever reason. Nearly all of our founders in these spaces are very mission driven, and you have to be authentic in your desire to improve things through the business idea that you have. So that'd be the first thing. Second thing is to be very user centric and not tech led. Like, who is the specific person that has a very real pain to solve? And how do you design your initial product in a very focused way against that very focused user? And then over time, you can grow beyond. Technology is awesome. It has a role in every one of our startups. But if technology is the hammer, then everything else becomes a nail, and you're not necessarily solving a true pain point for somebody. And then maybe the third thing is to focus on building coalitions or building teams or networks that grow the pie. Win through shared initiative with people that are solving similar problems. Sometimes that can even mean with somebody that you might view as a competitor, but maybe the problem is so big that you need to raise awareness of it and come at it from different angles. How do you make sure that you're thinking about designing rewards in a way that aligns incentives really well? And then maybe one other thing I'll mention is that solo founders can absolutely be successful, but I think it's harder, all else equal, than having a co-founder. And having a co-founder is not necessarily easy. You've got to find the right co-founder. But in our experience, having a co-founder that complements you really well is just going to give you so much insulation and support through the difficult journey of starting a business. At Wildwood, I'm fortunate to have that and my partner Jesse, but also the team that we have, each of whom is terrific. And building a business, whether it's a tech startup or a venture firm, it's hard. And so, thinking about the people that you can be on that journey with, and not thinking, "Oh, I'm good enough to do it by myself." You might be, but the journey is going to be way better and way more fun if you're doing it with other people around you.
Yeah, I think that's sage advice. Everybody hit rewind and listen to that all over again. So my final question for you, what is it that comes to mind when you think of going fast? And it can be anything.
Okay. Well, I mentioned earlier that I'm a father with 4 kids. So some parents out there have heard the phrase that the days are long and the years are short. And as my kids get older and older, our oldest will be a sophomore in high school next year. That is so true. The time goes really fast with your kids, and each year goes much faster than the year before. So I guess maybe the so what there is just, despite having a busy work life or all the other things that you're juggling, and it's not easy to do, but prioritize time with your loved ones, whether it's your kids, your spouse, friends, whatever. Time goes by super fast, and you never know if you're going to have it tomorrow. Let's be honest. So just enjoy the time that you have and hold it dear. That'd be my answer there.
Yeah, carpe diem, seize the day, keep those that are close to you closest. So, hey, thank you, David, for all of your time and your wisdom and for doing what you do over at Wildwood. I think it's going to be a very fruitful experience for you and those founders that you back. I like the thesis and the approach and the overall ethos of what you're doing. It resonates with me, and I hope that it resonates with founders that you're reaching out to and trying to bring into your program.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate your time, and thanks for the invitation to share with you and your audience.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So that'll do it, everyone. Thank you, David, for driving in the fast lane with us. And until next time, this is the Venture Capital Fast Lane, and I'm your host, Ryan Else.